You have drop-down lists throughout your application, and some of those lists you'd like to be dynamic and data-driven. Let's create an edit screen that allows us to edit those list items, shall we? Let's go. Let's begin with the end in mind, and let's see what we're going to end up with at the end of this video. Now, in subsequent screens, we're going to have drop-down lists, perhaps cascading drop-down lists, that will be driven by the data that we enter and edit here. This screen will allow us to add and edit items for those drop-down lists. So we have job types. Not only do we have job types, but we have categories in which they're going to fit into. Then we also have sub-job types. Look at all these services and job types that we have. These are broken down by categories, types, and subtypes. So as you can imagine, we're going to have some cascading drop-down lists. So each job type has a category, a type name, a subtype, and it's got an associated image. We can change if it's active or not. It will have a default cost associated and also an estimated time it will take for a technician to complete that job. And lastly, we'll have notes. So this is the screen that we're going to build. Let's jump in now. Would you do me a favor and leave a comment below letting me know what I could have done differently, either in my presentation, my explanations, what I could have done differently on the screen that would have helped you guys out better. Help me help you, and leave a comment. Thanks a lot. All right, so what we'll need is an edit screen with just a few fields, a little gallery on the side. If you look at the very first screen that we worked on together, it was the manage user screen. And I don't see why not we just couldn't make a copy of this and turn this into our edit screen for our drop-down values for our job types. So let's do that. So I'm going to click here, duplicate screen. All right, so the first thing I'll do is I'll rename this screen. Let's name it job type edit screen. Job type edit screen. And for this gallery, we don't need any of these things here. So we'll take out what's not needed. And let's call this job types. Before I start ripping out controls and moving these controls around, let me show you some additional fields that I want to add for the job types. So I had a thought, which was we could have a job type that could become inactive and we wouldn't want to delete it because some orders were created with that job type. And let's say we wanted to disable that job type. Well, we need some type of column there, like an is active, like we've used for some of the other entities that we've worked with already. Also an image. I'm adding these three: is active, image, and notes. Notes would be a good thing to keep in there. So the image, as I was thinking, I was about to rip out this image control here, and I still might do that, but I do have some images that I'd like to associate with these job types. So here are some images that I found that I'd like to associate with the different job types. And these are based on either a category or the job type, probably not the subtype. The subtypes will probably share these different image categories. So I thought I'd share with you what these are going to look like. So they're PNG files, which means all the edges of that oval there in each of these images will be transparent, which will make it look a little nicer there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. I'm not going to store these images in the SharePoint database, in the SharePoint list that's being used as a database. What I'm going to do is I'm going to upload each of these images into the PowerApps environment, the PowerApps project, each as individual files. I'm going to create a collection in App.OnStart. There'll be a reference to each of these images and probably a name and an ID. And then whenever I save a job type, I'm going to save probably that an image ID. But there's really no need to have these in the database. They're not going to be dynamically added by the super users or the, we're calling them app admins here. Pretty much any job type that they would add in the future would probably fall into one of these categories. And I don't want them repeated in the database a lot. So I think that would work out the best. Okay, so just to go over, I'm going to go, well, we need to add this in the SharePoint, add a SharePoint list that's going to hold all this information. So let's do that now. Easiest way to get over to SharePoint real quick is to go to one of these data sources, go to edit data. All right, we're in SharePoint now. I just want to click on site contents. All right, so we're in site contents now. Let's add a new SharePoint list. We get a blank list and we'll call it TBL job types. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go over to site or list settings. Okay, so we have a title. I think I'm going to leave title as is right now. And let's add in a category as a single line of text. Very good. Click OK at the bottom. We'll add a new one. And we'll call this, okay, so instead of having this be called short description, long description, I'm going to call it job type text. And this will be job subtype. So those are the two names I'm going to use instead of saying job short description, long description, because this job subtype isn't going to be that long. It's probably going to be all within probably 100 to 200 characters. So both of these actually. So I think that's probably a better description, a better column name for those two. All right, so the next field will be default cost. And we're going to have this be currency. Estimated time. So this is going to be a number of hours. Very good. Okay. This is active. We're going to leave that as single line of text. And just as an explanation, for Booleans, as we've done earlier in the project, for Booleans, we use a single line of text and we either use a capital Y for yes, capital N for no, or if there's anything other than a capital Y, it's considered a no or a false. Okay. All right, so for image, I'm going to put in there image ID, and we'll make that a number as we would for almost any type of auto number ID. And then we'll add a column for notes. This will be multiple lines of text, and almost always when I use multiple lines of text within SharePoint, I always want to make sure this says plain text. Very good. Now that should be it for the SharePoint list. So I want to make sure I have a good link to this SharePoint site. I'll copy that, and I will add a new data source. Make sure it says SharePoint, and we'll add it there. And there's job types right there. So we'll go ahead and click connect. Very good. All right, now that we have the data source in here, we don't have to keep referring to the TBL users. We can refer to the job types. And we'll just leave this reference to title for right now. And we have no need for any type of a PIN or a password like we did on the previous screen. I'm going to take all these toggles out, excluding or keeping the is active. And I think I'm going to take this out because we're going to implement that completely differently than what we did with the users. Okay. So I think the first thing we'll have is category, job type. Then we'll have job subtype. And, you know, I might sort of want those to be lined up with each other. Like, all right, so I might move these around a little bit, but I'm just gonna do some copying and pasting and move things around till things shape up a little more. Category. Job type. Job. Subtype. Cost. Estimated time. Is active, we already have. We have an image ID and then notes. Okay. I'm going to take out all the extra stuff. We might move things around a little bit. So what we need to have in there is some type of a way for them to pick which image they want to associate. I think I'd like to use some type of a gallery that will list off all those images. It would be nice. Okay, let's do something here. Let's upload those images, those PNGs, and let's get them into a collection so we can use them here. So we go to the media portion of this side column, click upload. All right, so we've got all the PNGs selected. I'm going to click open. It's pretty easy. Don't have to do them one by one. It's always nice. So they're all listed here to the side. You see that it's always a good idea to name these graphics the way that you want to reference them. So I like to prefix my graphics with GRA, and they all have the same prefix after that, the job type. It's very nice. All right, let's add in a button that we will delete very soon. We just want to create some code that's going to create this collection of images that we're going to use, and we'll just cut and paste this over to the App.OnStart once we get it to work just right. Clear collect. We use COL for collection. Job type images. We'll use the table function here, and we'll use curly braces for each record of the image. So each image will be a record within this collection. Okay, so we're just going to have an ID, and it's going to be like an auto incrementing ID. So the first one will be 1. And then we will say image name. We'll say image. So the first one, we'll just go down the line here. Looking at my cursor, we'll just go straight down. Make sure we don't miss any. Okay, so we got GRA, job type battery. Copy that, put that in there. And let's make this a little longer there. All right, so that will be one record. So we could have added this into a SharePoint list and added the image as binary data into a SharePoint list, but it just makes the application a little more complicated than what it needs to be. It's a little more dynamic, but I don't think in this case, as the saying goes, the juice is worth the squeeze. This is going to be very simple, straightforward, easy to implement, and these images aren't going to need to be added to very often, or if at all. And instead of this PowerApps application going to SharePoint to go getting that at least one time whenever the application loads up and having to load over all that binary data, it's right here inside the project. So, and we don't need to over-engineer this. Okay. All right, so the next one down is breaks. There we go. So we'll copy that, paste it there, make sure we got a 2 there. All right, so I went ahead and added the rest of these. I spared you guys the boring time of me typing all this out. button. So we have 11 images. They each have an ID, an image name, and a reference to the multimedia file over here. Okay. All right, very good. So that is inside the on select for this button. I'm going to hold down Alt and click on the button. So then that collection has been created now. And let's just test things out here. All right, so I'm going to use this gallery here. And let's do a Control C, Control V. And it needs to be a lot smaller. So let's make it smaller there. And let's make the items be col job type images. There we go. And I don't think that we want a label in there, but let's add in an image. Look at that. Isn't that cool? All right, so let's give this a wrap count of 3 maybe. And you can make this a little more dynamic. Now, so this will sit over here on the right side. I just wanted to play around with it a little bit. All right, so the image, I'm going to set up the width to be parent. Parent.template width. Pretty good. And for the height, we're going to say parent. But there we go. Let's set this up to be maybe 4. Okay. All right. Doesn't look too bad, does it? I sort of like it. We might want to have this as active over here on the right side. There we go. Let's see how that looks. Probably make this a little smaller. I don't want any of the scroll bars to appear. In fact, what we could do, you see the show scroll bar? We just turn that off just in case. There's a show navigation we could use instead, but hopefully they're all going to fit on there real nice and neat. Now we could, this template padding, set that to be more like 1. Might be good. And let's take a look. Okay, so the selected has that light yellow, which isn't very noticeable. So I think what I'd like to do, if we go into the, scroll down the very bottom here, should be at the top once we get to the bottom, called template fill. And what we can do here, let's try the light yellow and see how that looks. It's still not that noticeable. Let's go with just yellow. There we go. I like that. It's a little too strong. So let's do color fade. And let's reduce that by a good 30%. Or 50. Okay. I believe I like that. I'm just playing around a little more here. Six. Okay. Now, some I'll do to make sure this has a little bit of padding in here for the image. Let's try that out. That looks a little better. I might go more with like a 4. I think that looks a little better. It'd be nice if we had a little label on this thing. So let's line that up to the top of that. That text box, and then line it over here. There we go. All right. I find building applications is more fun for me the nicer it looks. I don't know. Nicer it looks, the more excited I am to work on it. So I don't think it'd be possible for me to continue working on a project where I don't believe what I'm designing looks nice. All right, so let's call this associated image. And let's make that a lot bigger. All right, now remember this button over here at the top. It's got this code that creates this collection. Yeah, we need to click in here, do a Control-A to select everything, Control-C to copy it, and we want to make sure that code is in the App.OnStart. And we'll just go down to the very bottom here and paste it right there. So every time the application starts, it's going to be in there. And now we don't need that button anymore. All right, so let's address some of these errors. And that doesn't need to be in there. Actually, this new record is useful because we might actually use that context variable for when they click on the add new at the bottom of the screen. So I'll actually turn that to be true. And we don't need to reset a add media button because we took that out of there. All right, very good. Let's get this gallery a meaningful name here. Gallery or gal job type listing. There we go. Go over here, category. So if it's a new record, we're going to put an empty string in there. And if it's not, then we will use this gallery. Selected dot category. Okay, job type. And we don't want title in there. We want job type text. And subtype, there we go. Default cost. Estimated time. All right. Looks a lot better without those errors. All right, so inside the save button, I'm sure there'll be a lot of things that we need to change over here. All right, so we're working with TBL job types. So we'll copy that because we need to paste that over on top of that and that and that. And a lot of these things need to be changed out. Okay. All right. All right, now I've got my SharePoint listing of all the columns up on my other screen there. And title, probably what I was planning on doing is taking the category, splicing it together with job type and subtype, putting those three things together, and that will be the title. And we could either use the title here, or we could just not use it, or maybe use it as text in the drop-down list that we'll use in subsequent screens. We could do that. So we have category here, txt, job type, category. Let's also put edit in there and reuse that prefix. There's a category. Default. Default cost. Estimated time. Okay, that looks good. Notes. All right, that looks good. And something that I may do, so we'll take each of these controls, and I use Notepad++ a lot of times just to have something on another screen where I can paste code into. So I can copy and paste stuff back and forth. Makes it easier. If you're going to do a patch, you got to make sure you got all the fields in there that you want to be included. It's a little more complicated than using a form, but I like it. Alright, so I will show you what that looks like now. All this stuff I've been pasting over into Notepad++. There we go. And how you make a comment in PowerApps or PowerFX. Do one of these / stars and end it with this star / All right, so title. Yeah, let's use that. Text. Splice in a dash. I think that'd be good. Text. All right, very good. So we have those three things. All right, so we've got, yeah, once you type that comment in there, it really wants some more code, otherwise it's gonna say that there's an error, which was there's all right. I'll minimize that. And so the next field is called job type texts. Okay. Nope, it's category. Yeah. I need that comma in there. There you go. If the toggle value return a Y, otherwise an N. Very good. Now what I have seen some people do, I don't like it, but it's tempting to use, which is you just start the new line with the comma. Default cost. You see how that works? You don't always have to remember. You don't always have to remember that the comma at the end. You always put it in the beginning. Now it's got a problem with something. Let's hover over this and see. Yeah. So we actually need to use the value function to make sure that's a number. Very good. All right, so I just wanted to show you that comma. Sometimes people will use that. I don't care for that. I'll put it back there. All right, so on these numbers, we want to make sure, see on the cost, say number, and time needs to be number as well. And the rest of these will be text. All right, for the image, we have an image ID. So what we'll do is grab that gallery. Let's see, that's selected. Pad ID. All right, now we do have one more field to get in there, this patch. So this is going to be notes. There we go, notes. And we'll bring this guy over. Text. Okay, I think we got everything. I believe so. So once you get your patch that does the insert or the adding of the new record, just go down here and paste, and it should work fine down there. Now it's time to try this out. Let's enter a few test records. All right, we're going to say for the category, mechanical problems. For the job type, we're going to say air conditioning. For the job subtype, we're going to say complete AC testing and repair. Almost don't want to input anything if I don't know. Okay, mechanical problems. Let's just put this down as an engine. It's going to be active. In fact, what we're going to do here, I'm going to say or true, because I did not click on this add new button. I should have, and this is the very first one, so nothing selected over here. So this very first time I want this to go in as a new record, and it's active. I don't think I want to put anything in there for notes for right now, but I'm going to click save record. But before I do, I'll make sure this is on top, and also the spinner is on top of the menu. Cross your fingers and hit save. There we go. Now that we've got one in there, let's go ahead and add in an image. There we go. And for the image, let's do a lookup on our collection for job type images. And the condition is sort of like the where clause here. So we're going to say where the ID equals this item.image ID. And then when we want to say image, there we go. Very good. And I'm going to put in a decent amount of padding. Let's try out 10 for each of these. Very good. All right, let's enter a few more records here. So click on Add New, and the second record here is going to have the same category. It's going to have the same job type, but then the subtype is going to be AC recharge. Okay, I'm going to keep it with the engine icon, and I'm going to click Save. Very good. So for the third record here, mechanical problems, job type will be exhaust. Subtype will be diagnosis and repair. Make sure we don't have any weird spaces in here, because you know users will copy and paste stuff over, and sometimes there's going to be spaces. So something that you see me done in the past, and I'd like to continue to do, which is to wrap the trim function around a lot of these text fields, because it does happen quite a bit. And then it sort of messes up a lot of your sorting and your data looking nice. So I always like to add that. Now, if they add spaces and notes, I think I'll just leave it be. And I'm going to paste what I had up here. All right. So just in case I do get an extra space before or after, or excessive spaces between the words, I should strip it out, which is nice. All right, so let's get that third record in there. All right. Now for the exhaust, I wanted the exhaust icon. So let's resave that one. Okay. Now, instead of editing it, actually added as a new record. So let's see what's going on there. I thought I had taken that little, and I did not. I need to take that out before true. I just meant to do that for the first one. Okay. So we might need a little delete icon now. I don't like to put deletes a lot of times in screens, because most of the time they really don't need a delete. They just need to mark something as an active. But if you're doing some testing here, it would be a good idea. So let me show you how to do that. Let's go down to copy controls from here. And let's add this red button here. Okay. Now eventually we need to add a job type here, and also have a job type here in the menu. So we'll do that before we end this video session here. So job types, there we go. And I want to make sure I paste it in there. Delete. Make it smaller, doesn't need to be all that big. And now we will only make this visible to testers, because that is a legitimate reason why you'd want to delete this if you're putting some test records in there. And also an application administrator or the owner of this garage will be a tester anyway. So var show debugging. Also, this item dot is selected. Okay, so if we click on this little debugging thing here, very good. Now for this, on this button on select, inside these two spinner lines of code here, what we'll do is we'll use remove TBL job types. And we'll say this item. So remove takes two parameters. The first parameter is the data source, the name of the data source, and then the second item is the record that you want to remove. All right, so I'm looking for exhaust. So these two are exhaust, and this is the one I want to delete because I wanted to keep the one with the exhaust icon. Very good, and it's gone. All right, the next thing that I would like to do is to change this up a little bit. In fact, I think I might want to take it out completely. Category. Let's pick a 30 pixels in height. And we will move it down a little bit. All right, so I'm going to move this up a little bit. Make sure they're all aligned to the left, and let's try to center those a little bit. Looks good to me. All right. So I'd like to make the category stand out a little bit. So we will, let's make the width of all three of these. We'll take parent.template width, and we'll subtract self.x, and then we'll subtract 20 pixels. Want to make sure there's enough space for a scroll bar in there, as we definitely will have. I guess we'll leave it as that for now. And let's make the category look a little different by making it bold. Now, what we could eventually do as we get perhaps hundreds of these job types is we could have a filter at the top, so we could filter by category or even by job type. Okay, so that's the category. And there is the type, and here is the subtype. Looks like to me that they're not quite aligned up all that well. And that's perhaps, look at that. Remember when I had to do that trim? There we go. I mean, at this point, we just hit save and it should take out that spacing. Yeah, there we go. You see how that not using trim on things can really mess you up? All right, I think I like this. That delete button is very big. So let's click on that delete button. Now, most users aren't going to see it because they're not going to be in this debug mode a lot, but let's make the height to be more like 30. And let's make the font to be smaller, like 11. Take the width down to maybe 60. There we go. That looks a lot better to me. And we have that line up right there on that category bar, so it's not so intrusive. That looks nice. Okay. I still would like thinking about indenting the subtype over a little bit. The subtypes will probably be longer, so I don't want to slim down the space too much. I think what I would like to do is decrease the font size down to maybe 11, and maybe this one as well. Something else I'd like to do is if I click around, I should see these controls change. And I want to put some notes in here for each of these because I want to make sure the notes is working right. You notice that this gallery isn't changing based on when we click on these. So now all three of them are exhaust. So I was about to get to that. I just wanted to put some notes in here and I ended up messing that up, but we will fix that. All right, so diagnostic, okay, AC recharge, okay. So the notes definitely is working. It is saving. All right. All right, so these first two are engine. There we go. All right, now we need to make sure that this gallery is actually displaying. Whenever we click on an item over here in this gallery, we want the appropriate image to be selected that has been already saved for that record. So what we'll do, looks like I just spotted an error that was a leftover from something we had before, which we have no need to reset any add media buttons. And so this was a copy from this gallery here. Let me click on this and make sure, there it is. Make sure that's out of there. Sort of the downfall or the con of doing a lot of copying and pasting of already pre-configured controls is you might have some leftover stuff from before. All right, so what we want to do is set up the default property of this gallery. Essentially, we just need to do a lookup within that collection. So lookup, we have a collection of job type images, and we'll look for the ID and match that up with our gallery name is gallery job type listing, and we'll say selected, whichever one is selected, dot image ID, and that should make sure the right one is being selected. So let's click around and make sure that that's true. There you go. Okay, it looks right, and we see the notes changing. Pretty much everything is changing. Now the mechanical problems, the category is the same. Okay. I really didn't want to enter any cost or estimated time because I don't know what those values are. And when they go in to actually enter those values, I don't want them to try to figure out what's a bogus value and what's a value they've already entered. So if it's blank, it means it has been entered. However, I need to test to make sure that that's going in there right. So I'm going to save that. And for the second one, I'll say 2, 3, save. And then for this third one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6. Make sure to just use different values. And it looks fine. And they should be numbers. So if I try to type any alpha characters in there, very good. All right, now we need to blank them out. All right, now it appears everything is working right. So I've got, I want to input a lot more of these job types, but I don't want to bore you guys with data entry. So I'll just pause the video and enter those and then show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, I did find a bug that I wanted to share with you guys. It's always good to do data entry like this, and I found it just by entering one more item, which is I entered those test values for default cost and estimated time, and I would blank them out and save, and they were not going back to 0 or going to a blank. And the reason for that is it was expecting a number, and what I did was I hit a backspace and made it blank, which it didn't like because it was expecting a number, not a string. So let me show you what I did to resolve that. Wanted to document that with you guys. So for the default cost and also the estimated time, I wrapped an if statement or an if function around this. I checked to see the length of how many characters. Now those text boxes only allow numeric values. So if there's nothing in there, no characters at all, that means it's just a blank. So in that case, I give it a value of 0. Otherwise, I take the value of what's been typed in there. And I do that for both of them. And then I copied and pasted it down here as well. Okay. Now I'm going to enter the others. All right. So I've entered all the job types. And you might be wondering, as I am, how many job types are there? So let me just show you how I do that. So for this little label up here, that's the column header for this gallery. Let's just put a space in there, and we'll use the ampersand and use a CountRows function, and we'll pass in the name of our data source, job types, and we'll get a count here, 136. So somebody might be interested in that. So let's just splice in some parentheses there. Look at that. So it looks nice. Okay, so there are a few things that I want to do here. I would like to have a drop down that will filter these based on the category. So if they don't want to look at all of them all at once, 136 is quite a bit. if they're looking just for a specific one that they want to edit, wouldn't want to have them to look through all 136. It's not that many, but this might be something that's very common in one of your applications. Maybe there's a few hundred, a few thousand. Maybe you want to slim that down before the user goes through and tries to find an item. So it's a common use case I'd like to show you guys how to do. All right, so let's make this a little smaller. We can make this maybe 13. It would still look good. And let's align it to the right side so we can put something else here. All right, let's go get us a drop-down list. Copy controls from here. And let's go get us a drop-down list here. It's already got our styling set. All right, we're going to paste it in here. Look at that. Okay. Let's make this a little smaller, maybe like 240. And let's zoom in so we can place it just right. Let's say 335 maybe. That's not bad. So what we'll use here, we're gonna go through the current data source, which are the job types, and we'll use the distinct keyword. Okay, so I'm gonna be looking at TBL job types, and let's use distinct. And the column that we'll be looking for is categories, or category. Very good. All right, so let's run this, and look at that. Those are all the categories. Isn't that nice? So we also might want to sort that based on, sort of alphabetically. So we'll do sort. And distinct does not return the whole result set. What it returns is like an array, and the name of it would be result, I believe. Yeah, result. Okay. And you can see that PowerApps makes it easy to see if you just select that and look at that. Distinct gives us a table, a one column. So you notice that the column name of this table is result and not category. So whenever you use the distinct, you need to keep that in mind. And we should be able to see that it is sorted. And I believe what I will do is move this down a little bit. And unfortunately, that did not move with it. And you know what? I'm going to make this into the same group. So that's easy to find. And let's rename that group. Job type listing group. And so the name of our gallery is that right there. Very good. Now for this rectangle here, for the Y, we'll reference the gallery. It's Y, but then we'll subtract self.height. That's good. Okay, I think that works. All right, so I think what I might want to do is do something like this. Like it. But there's also a chance the users might want to look at all of them. So let's add a checkbox here. And we'll actually say show all. Okay. Check show all job type categories. Okay. And then what we'll do for this drop-down list, Well, we don't really want any default value. It's just going to be the first one there. So take that out. For the display mode, if that checkbox .value is true, then we're going to say display mode disabled. How about that? Okay, so it might make sense what I'm doing here if I actually show. So if we want to see all of them, this will become disabled. If we don't want it to show all right, so this drop-down list is 40 pixels. So let's make that the same and make sure it's all lined up there. Very good. All right, now we need to filter this gallery based on these two values. So drop-down list, job type categories. Very good. And I got my trusty little Notepad++. By the way, that's a free download. Go do Google search for Notepad++ if you don't currently use Notepad++. It's a great tool. If you don't use that, I'd recommend something like VS Code. That's good as well. Both of them are free. So I'm just going to grab those two control names because down here within the gallery for the data source, we are going to change things up. Okay. Okay, we want to filter. Where the category equals a drop-down list dot selected text dot value. Okay, or if that checkbox is true. Okay, let's format text there. All right, so brake repairs. You see all these are brake repairs. I don't know if I want that 136 in there because I don't want the users to assume that there's 136 items in this, because if we filter or search or do something, I don't want them to think that that number is off. So what I might do, keep that, it's just job types. Now up here in this title here, this thing is set up to just display ActiveScreen.name. I'm sorry, app.ActiveScreen.name. Okay, and we'll do one of these. So there's the name of the screen, job type, edit screen. And it's got that. I'm not sure how I like that though. There you go. 136 total job types. Okay, so we can put that up there in the header like that. It looks good. I like it. All right, let's just test things a little bit. So brake repairs, electrical problems, engine repairs. I think what I might do now is I still like to know the totals. So for this gallery here, this job types, we'll still use that CountRows on the gallery, and we'll say all items. Do that. There we go. So that's always going to show us how many items are being displayed there. That's good. Okay. So the gallery control If there's more than 100, it will just go get 100 and that's it. Or it won't be displaying any more than 100, I should say that. It's got all the values up to 2,000 records, but it won't load them into the gallery until you go down. Watch this. If we scroll all the way down, look at that, 136. So it goes to get another 100. What I want to do is we can just do this type of filter right here and throw it right in there. And then it should always be accurate. But it looks like we have an error. It doesn't need that comma. So that's what was fouling it up there. There we go. Very good. Okay, then we'll click on show all. So he's got the 136 now and not the 100. Okay, so we did that. What if we want to do a search? I could see somebody trying to search within this. Now, we covered search back when we looked at the customer listing screen. So we had the search here, and I'm sort of tempted to just snag it, to snag what we have over here, okay? So we do have we don't need all of these things. Maybe we'll grab these 3 things here, do a copy, paste it here. All right. Now this isn't where we'll leave it, but the hint text should be, we'll just put the word search there because we don't have a lot of room. Get rid of that label. Okay. The height of that text box was 40, so make sure it still stays that way. Now, I will have to say, I think I would like the default for this checkbox to be on. So when the user comes to the screen, they're looking at all of them. I think I'd like these 2 controls to line up a little bit there. So let's do that. So we'll call this txt job type search. Okay. All right, so now we have to work up a more complex query for the items property of this gallery. And I'm going to grab that little search text box name there, and let's try to figure this out. The problem with search itself is that if there's nothing in the search box, I don't believe it returns anything. So let's try it out here. So we got search. That's what we will search in. That is the source. The text will be the text box. The column, I think we should search in title. Because if you remember the title, we throw the category, the job type, and the subtype all into it. And that should work well. I believe that title needs to be in double quotes. So let's try this out. Now, as you can see, we haven't typed anything in the search box and nothing's being returned. Okay, so that's why I was thinking we needed to do an if. So let's do that. An if, the text box, text, and we need to check to see the length. If the length of that is 0, then we'll take what we had here, okay, otherwise we'll do the search, and I think we need an ending parenthesis for that if statement. And it's going to be evident, it's going to look cleaner if we just click on this format text. Look at that. All right, so the first thing it's going to do, it's going to see if there's anything in there. If there's not anything in there, it's going to do the search as we had before. There is something in there once we start typing. Let's look at this diagnosis. Look at that. So each of these items is going to have diag in it. Okay, well, this looks good. What I don't care for is that we've got this 136 here on the search. What we need to do is, since our query has changed, just grab it all. But we don't really need the sort to count what's in there, but we definitely don't want to get that comma. So we'll grab that. And come on, why is it not moving? All right, we'll paste it right there, and that should work. So that should always show us how many are in there. There's one last thing that we need to complete, and that is if we go back to our dashboard, so we're an Office admin type of a user, we should see our job types here, a button, and also a menu item for them to get into. Also, I don't like the developer screen icon, so let's change that as well. All right, I did find two icons I'd like to use. The one for developer, instead of this little plus icon, it will be this sort of a support looking guy, which a developer would be in the case of a business owner needs support for their application. They're going to call the developer, right? And then we also have this other icon. It's a notebook icon, but I'm thinking it's a book of job types that the garage could perform. So these are the two icons that I would like to go with. So I'm going to remove them from this screen. Before we go into the App.OnStart and add those as menu items, let's just go ahead and make a copy of one of these buttons here. And let's make this a little bigger. Let me show you a little cool thing about aligning and spacing out controls. You could have these controls in a certain way. Select them all, right click, align, and let's distribute vertically. There we go. And size this up a little bit. That looks good. I'll select them all. Make sure you don't get your spinner in there. And if you follow these little guidelines, now we know that it's centered on the screen. Want to make sure our menu's on the top, and then make sure the spinner's on top of the menu. That's always good. Now for the customers, we want to make sure this one says job types. Okay, now we need to go get the name of that screen. Job type edit screen. And I just saw that we need to do an update here on the order of the controls. Make sure that's on the top, and then go find the spinner, make sure that's on the top. All right, so that would be good. All right, very good. Now if I test that out, nope, that does not go to the right one because we didn't. Change the screen name there. There we go. So now it should work. Actually did not. Why didn't it work? Let's try it again. There we go. I don't know why it didn't work that first time. All right, very good. So those three menu items work. Customers, job types. Very good. All right, let's go into the app. On start. And we'll scroll down to where all the menu items are created, they're defined. Let's open this up a little more. So the developer for the icon, instead of add document, we wanted support. And for, okay, we have manage users, we've got customers. So we'll make a copy of this one for customers, like we did with that button. Instead of customers, we want to say job types. And instead of log journal, it'll be notebook. They will still need to be an office admin. And the name of the screen is job type edit screen. Very good. Now we need to click on the ellipsis here and say run on start. That should reset the application. So we go back here. We log on. There we go. So we have job types, and there's a developer screen, which just goes there. All right. I'll test that out one more time. Everything's looking good. Would you do me a favor and leave a comment below letting me know what I could have done differently, either in my presentation, my explanations, what I could have done differently on the screen that would have helped you guys out better. Help me help you, and leave a comment. Thanks a lot.
If you found anything in this video helpful, we would really appreciate you click on that like button. If you want to get a solid foundation on PowerApps, there are 10 things you must know. Lucky for you, my husband wrote the book. We are actually offering it for free. Click on the link below to download your free copy today. And if you want to connect with us or work with Darren directly, visit our website. The link is below. Thanks.